At exactly 3:04 a.m, I opened my eyes to the faint sound of my safe clicking shut and my sister tiptoeing back to her room. We shared this house for years after Mom died, pretending everything was fine. She made breakfast, I paid the bills, perfect harmony, or so I thought. Lately, little things vanished, my old journals, the deed, even Mom's final letter. I wanted to believe it was forgetfulness, but tonight proved otherwise. If she thought I'd stay silent, she was wrong. She had no idea I saw everything. And tomorrow morning, when she pours her coffee, I'll be sitting across from her with the truth. The morning after the sound of my safe snapping shut, Sierra was in the kitchen, humming and flipping pancakes. Sunlight streamed in through the big bay windows, lighting her hair like a halo. She looked up and smiled like nothing had happened. "Orange juice or coffee?" she asked. "Coffee," I replied, my voice steady. I took a seat, studying her movements, the way she reached for the butter, the calm way she wiped her hands on the towel. If I hadn't seen her last night, I might have believed this little domestic scene was real. We had a rhythm, her and I. I paid the mortgage. She kept the house looking lived in. After Mum died, it was what made sense. I didn't want to be alone, and Sierra said she couldn't bear to live in our aunt's cold condo. We were rebuilding, healing, sharing the space where we'd once grown up. She passed me my mug. "You slept hard last night," she said, like it was a casual observation. "Didn't even hear the thunder." "Guess I was tired," I murmured, and took a sip. Still smiling, she leaned against the counter and tapped her nails, painted a delicate blush pink against the marble. "I was thinking of reorganizing the attic today. Some of Mum's things are still up there." "Sure," I said. "That sounds good." Truth was, I'd already been through the attic, twice. The second time, I noticed the shoebox that used to hold old letters was missing. Maybe I'd misplaced it, or maybe someone had moved it. Back then, I chalked it up to grief, making me careless. But there were other things. A framed photo of Mom that used to sit on the hallway table disappeared one week, then reappeared on the kitchen shelf 2 weeks later. Sierra said she moved it because the hallway made her feel watched. I didn't question it, at least not out loud. As I sipped my coffee, Sierra kept talking about the neighbour's dog, about a sale at the bookstore downtown, about how she was thinking of applying for a teaching job again. I nodded, murmured the right responses, but my mind drifted to the strange email I'd gotten 3 nights ago. A confirmation for an appointment I didn't book. When I checked, my calendar app had been accessed from my iPad while I was asleep. Only 2 people knew the unlock code, me and Sierra. Still, I told myself it was probably a glitch. Maybe I'd done it and forgotten. Work had been intense lately, and I hadn't taken a break in over a month. When my own sister asked if I was feeling okay, I thought it was concern, but then I overheard her at the gate 2 days ago. She was talking to Mrs. Elson, our neighbour. I'd just returned from a session early and caught the end of it. "She's been forgetful lately," Sierra had said. "I'm a little worried. She left the stove on last week and doesn't even remember. That never happened." Back inside, I confronted her. "Why would you tell Mrs. Elson I left the stove on?" Sierra blinked. "What? Oh, that. I just meant the kettle. It was whistling for like 5 minutes the other morning." "No, it wasn't," I said more coldly than I meant to. She smiled, tilted her head. "You sure?" That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, adrenaline buzzing just under my skin. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I downloaded a motion-sensitive camera app onto my old phone, placed it on the bookshelf in my room, facing the safe. It wasn't much, but it might be enough to catch whatever it was I was missing. But when I checked the next morning, the app had crashed. The footage didn't exist. It must have glitched, I muttered to myself. But something gnawed at me. The battery was full, the app was tested. It had worked in my office last week during a late session with a patient prone to violent episodes. Had someone seen it, turned it off? At dinner that night, Sierra made her famous lasagna just like Mum used to. She poured red wine into 2 glasses and set them down. "You've seemed stressed," she said. "Maybe you should take a few days off work. Just rest." I watched her carefully. The gentleness in her voice, the concern in her eyes. It was almost too perfect. "I might do that," I said, and clinked my glass against hers. But something inside me was already shifting. The pieces had started forming a shape I didn't like. My memories weren't slipping. I wasn't paranoid. And Sierra wasn't just trying to help. She was orchestrating something. I just didn't know what yet. The next week, Sierra became unusually attentive. Every morning, she had my vitamins lined up next to a glass of orange juice. She reminded me about my appointments, even offered to drive me. "You're working too much," she'd say gently, pressing a warm hand to my forehead like I was a child. I tried to believe she was just being kind. Maybe I'd been too harsh. Maybe she felt guilty about something small and was making up for it. But then she started managing my meals. "Don't worry about cooking," she said one evening. "Just focus on resting." The food was always just right, too right. Calorie counted, soft, subtle flavouring, even the same texture every day. It was as if she was planning a nutritional chart I hadn't asked for. At first I appreciated it. Then I noticed something strange. I was waking up later than usual, groggy, with almost no recollection of falling asleep. I checked the tea bags she used. Nothing unusual. I sniffed the vitamins. Harmless. Still something didn't sit right. A patient, one I'd been working with for over a year, sent me a confused text. "Hey, just checking. Why'd you cancel our session this week?" I hadn't. I checked my phone log. The call to cancel had gone out at 8:36 p.m. 2 nights ago. I was in the bath then, my phone left charging on the dresser. The patient gave me the caller ID. It matched my number. I had a sickening thought and checked my recent call history. It was gone. I found the backup file on my cloud account. The call had happened, but not by me. That night, after Sierra had gone to bed, I rummaged through the drawers in the study. Hidden in a folder beneath our mother's old estate files, I found something that froze the blood in my veins, a psychiatric evaluation form dated a month ago with my name on it. Diagnosis: mild disorientation, cognitive decline, potential early-stage dementia. It was signed, stamped, the name of the clinic, real. But I had never been there. My head spun. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. The implication was horrifying. Someone was preparing a paper trail, a story. If this got out, if enough people believed it, I could be declared unfit. My license could be revoked. I stared at the camera app I had reinstalled that morning. This time I used an encrypted backup with cloud storage. Before bed, I positioned my backup phone carefully, its lens peeking from behind the row of hardcovers on the shelf. At 3:07 a.m, I woke with a jolt. I'd heard nothing, but I felt something. I didn't move, I just listened. Soft padding feet, then a faint metallic click, the safe. I waited 10 minutes after the silence returned, then got up and checked the footage on my laptop. There she was. Sierra, dressed in her robe, bare feet creeping into my room. She moved with calculated precision, hands steady, body relaxed, like she'd done this before. But as she stepped aside, I saw something that made my throat close. Someone else followed her. A tall figure in a dark coat, hair pulled back in a bun, moving with eerie familiarity. It wasn't just a friend. It wasn't some random stranger. It was someone I hadn't seen since the funeral. Vivian, my mother's younger sister, the woman who vanished when the will was read, and her name was nowhere in it. I paused the video, staring at the freeze frame of her face, sharp and expressionless, as she watched Sierra rifle through my safe. I remembered her voice from childhood, always sugar, always dripping, with passive comments that stung more than screams. I remembered the tension she brought into every room Mom was in. She'd never forgiven Mom for leaving her out of the estate. And now she was here, inside my house, digging into the last thing Mom left me. I kept watching. Vivian didn't touch anything. She stood back, giving instructions in whispers I couldn't hear. Sierra nodded, lifted a stack of letters, pulled out something, flat, white, folded. The deed, the medical forms, I couldn't tell. I wanted to scream, to run downstairs and catch them in the act. But it was too late. The footage ended with them disappearing back into the shadows. The safe quietly closed again. My hands shook as I logged into an encrypted cloud vault and saved every second of the footage. Then I opened a new document and started writing everything down. Timeline, events, voices. Suspicion wasn't enough now. I needed proof. For the first time I realized Sierra wasn't the mastermind. She was a pawn. Vivian had always known how to manipulate the weak, how to poison loyalty with just the right blend of guilt and greed. But why now? Why after all this time? And how far were they willing to go? I spent the next morning combing through the attic, hunting for old documents Mom might have hidden from plain sight. Among a stack of dusty manila folders, I found it, an original copy of The Will, or what I thought was the original. The signature at the bottom didn't match the one filed with our family attorney. The notary seal was off-centre, the language more generic. My hands trembled as I laid it next to the scanned copy I had on my drive. 2 lines had been removed in the hard version. Lines that clearly stated, "Any attempt to dispute or alter this document shall result in forfeiture of inheritance rights." I didn't want to believe it, but there it was. Sierra had tampered with the will. I didn't know when. Maybe it had happened before Mum passed. Maybe after. Either way, it was intentional. It required planning, knowledge, and, most disturbingly, access. And Vivian. Vivian had always resented Mom. As kids, they were polar opposites. Mum followed rules, built a practice, saved money. Vivian ran wild, made poor decisions, married and divorced 3 times before I turned 15. I remembered Mum saying once, with a sigh, "Your aunt doesn't understand consequences. She only understands entitlement." Apparently that hadn't changed. I dug deeper, this time into my own memories. What had I missed? I remembered Sierra's quiet reactions at the funeral, the way she didn't cry, didn't touch the casket, only stood in a corner. I remembered how she winced when people offered condolences. Then it hit me. Sierra wasn't just grieving Mom, she was grieving her last chance to prove herself to her. Growing up, Mum always compared us, often unknowingly. "Hannah, can you help Sierra with her homework?" "Hannah, maybe Sierra can shadow you at the clinic to learn discipline." Sierra hated those comments. She'd nod politely, but I saw her lips tighten, her eyes drift away. Mum trusted me with her legacy, the house, the safe, the letters, but she never told Sierra what she truly meant to her. Now I saw it clearly. Sierra was a pawn, but also a prisoner. Vivian saw the cracks and slipped right in. A few days later, Sierra walked into the living room with a bright smile and a thin stack of papers. "Vivian helped me go through the taxes," she said. "We found some overlap in the deed, and she suggested we consolidate ownership to avoid penalties." I stared at her. "What kind of consolidation?" "It's nothing big," she replied. "Just legal housekeeping. The lawyer said it would protect both of us." I studied the top page. It looked harmless. A lot of dense legal language, common terms about property, survivorship rights, family trust references. And then I saw it, buried on page 3. Transfer of primary title from sole heir to joint holders, Vivian Ellis and Sierra Bennett. I looked up slowly. "You want me to sign this?" She hesitated. "I just thought it's what Mum would have wanted." My hands were cold as I took the pen. I signed, and in that moment, something in me shattered. Not because I was tricked, but because I finally understood how far she'd fallen. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling again. Only this time, my face was blank. No fury, no grief, just calculation. I took 2 sleeping pills with a glass of red wine, enough to make me sluggish, but not unconscious. I left a handwritten note on my nightstand. It was brief, vague, and deeply misleading. Then I turned off the lights and waited. Sierra burst into my room at 7:12 a.m., gasping. I kept my breathing steady, shallow. I heard her call my name, shake my shoulders, then rush to get her phone. She didn't call an ambulance. She called Vivian. Within 30 minutes, I heard them whispering in the hallway. "She really did it?" Vivian asked, breathless. "She must have. I told you she's been acting strange," Sierra replied. Her voice was shaking. "From guilt or fear?" "Then it's done," Vivian said. "Let the lawyer know. We'll start the title transfer immediately." They moved fast. Too fast. They didn't even think to check my pulse. As they left the house to get help, I opened my eyes and sat up. The camera I'd hidden behind the air vent had captured every word. It was almost poetic. The same safe Sierra had snuck into for weeks now held the final nail in her plan's coffin. The morning after I faked my own overdose, I opened it with steady hands. Beneath old deeds and legal letters, taped to the underside of the drawer's lid, I found the flash drive Mom had hidden. Its label read, "If They Try." My stomach twisted as I plugged it into my laptop. The video was grainy but clear. It was taken during Mum's last month, her voice raspier than I remembered. She sat in her reading chair, wrapped in the same navy shawl she wore every day. "They think I don't know," she said to the camera. "But I do." She paused, breathing hard. Vivian came by again, with Sierra. They talked in the hallway. I left the door open just enough. They want the house. They think if I'm declared unfit, the will can be contested. She leaned closer, her eyes clouded but defiant, cutting straight through time. "I'm not changing my will, but I know what they're capable of. If anything happens to me, Hannah, don't trust them." My throat tightened, not with sadness, but with fire. All this time I'd been questioning my own memories, doubting my instincts, wondering if I was being paranoid. But my mother, even in her weakest days, had seen it all. I replayed the clip twice. Then I uploaded it to a private encrypted drive, labelled it with a timestamp and sent it to my lawyer with a message. "We're going to court." But court would take time, and Vivian wasn't waiting. I contacted an investigator I knew through a former patient, a quiet man with a sharp memory and no patience for liars. Within a day, he uncovered 2 offshore accounts recently opened under shell company names. One under Vivian. One, disturbingly, under my name. The IP addresses traced back to our home. Sierra had been stealing not just documents, but my digital identity. It was time to burn the game down. I called Maria, a friend I trusted more than anyone. She was loud, passionate, and had a knack for making gossip travel fast. I told her to casually mention that I had checked into a private mental health clinic out of town, recovering from a breakdown. I even forwarded her a fabricated intake receipt, complete with a logo, from a real facility. She did exactly as I asked, and within 24 hours, 3 old colleagues texted to check in. My therapist sent me an email offering emergency support. The trap was set. I watched from my laptop as Sierra paced through the living room, talking on speakerphone. "Yes," she said, "she's in no condition to return. I just need to get this property moving while she's under treatment." She wasn't even pretending to be subtle anymore. The next day, a for sale sign went up outside the house. Sierra had found a buyer through a quick cash real estate firm known for off-market deals. The price was low, suspiciously so. She was trying to dump the house before I could contest anything. What she didn't know was that I had made an offer before she even listed it. Using a pseudonym and an LLC I'd created 6 months ago as a legal experiment, I contacted the firm. The buyer's name on the paperwork, Meredith Blake. Address, a PO box in another state. Funds, already verified through my own trust. The meeting was set. Final walkthrough, sale agreement. I dressed in a dark pantsuit, wore a grey wig, added subtle latex prosthetics to reshape my jawline. It was over the top, but necessary. I needed to see it, to watch her face when it all unravelled. When I arrived at the house, Sierra greeted me with a bright, nervous smile. She walked me through the place like she didn't recognise me, pointing out hardwood, floors, and crown moulding, as if this wasn't the home where we grew up. She barely mentioned me, only referred to the current occupant as having stepped away for care. She left in a hurry, she said, motioning toward my still unmade bed. Poor thing. I nodded, took notes, pretended to ask about plumbing. We signed the papers in the dining room. Vivian wasn't there, but her name appeared on the seller line beside Sierra's. I waited until the last signature dried before I removed the wig. Sierra froze. What the hell is this? I handed her a manila envelope. Inside, printed screenshots, banking statements, emails she never thought I'd find. The flash drive, too. I wanted to see how far you'd go, I said quietly. Now I know. The morning of the official transfer, the air in the notary's office was thick with forced pleasantries. Vivian arrived in a tailored navy suit, her lips pressed into a smug smile. Sierra hovered beside her, visibly tense, clutching her purse like it held the last shred of control she had left. I walked in 30 seconds after them. "Sorry I'm late," I said. Vivian's head snapped toward me. Sierra dropped her bag. "You're alive?" I smiled. "Surprise." The notary looked up, confused. I'm sorry, who, I'm Hannah Bennett, the legal owner of the property in question, and I'd like to halt this transfer pending review of fraudulent documentation. Sierra stepped forward, trembling. "Hannah, wait, we were just..." But I'd already reached into my folder and pulled out the USB drive. "Please," I said, turning to the clerk, "you'll want to see this." The notary hesitated, but took the drive. I nodded for him to play the video. The room fell into heavy silence as my mother's frail voice filled the air. "They think I don't know." The moment Vivian heard her name, she stood up. "This is illegal." "No," I said firmly. "It's testimony from the woman you tried to erase." The notary's assistant stepped out of the room with his phone. 2 minutes later, a marshal entered the office, followed by 2 more. Vivian's face went pale. "You can't arrest me for a video." "We're not," one of the officers said. "We're arresting you for forgery, identity theft, and conspiracy to defraud an estate. We've received statements and digital evidence from Ms. Bennett's legal team." She tried to bolt, but they caught her before she reached the door. Sierra collapsed into the chair, hands shaking. Her mascara streaked instantly with tears. "I didn't know she'd go that far," she whispered. I thought we'd just make it easier." "You lied," I said. "You manipulated, gaslit, and forged documents with someone who used you." "I was scared," she choked. "I didn't know how to fix it. I gave you so many chances," I said. "You chose her." She slid from the chair to the floor, her knees hitting the cold tile with a soft thud. "I'm sorry," she said again and again, a loop of regret too late to matter, but I didn't feel rage anymore, just emptiness. When I walked out of the office, sunlight hit my face. My lawyer followed behind, nodding. "The court will honour the original will. Everything's back under your name. She's out. Both of them are." I took a breath so deep it hurt. Then I let it go. The news spread fast. It always does when there's betrayal, money, and family involved. A local reporter I trusted ran the story with care. No embellishments, just truth. Within days, blogs picked it up. Then social media. Vivian's mugshot trended on crime forums. Old clients of hers came forward with similar allegations. Sierra tried to stay quiet, but the internet has no mercy. Screenshots of her voice messages leaked. Audio from the house, time-stamped and damning. Even the fake psychiatric report surfaced, traced back to a shady paralegal Vivian had used for years. She was disowned publicly by those who once pitied her. My phone filled with apologies from distant cousins, neighbours, even Mrs. Elson next door. No one knew how deep it had gone. The house sat empty for a while. I locked the safe, changed the codes, sealed the attic. One evening I stood alone in the living room watching dust float in the late golden light. The walls no longer whispered betrayal. They were just walls. I felt the ache of memory in every floorboard. But it no longer pierced me. I walked out onto the porch, barefoot. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting the world in that in-between glow, soft, forgiving. I closed my eyes and tilted my head back. Peace wasn't loud. It didn't crash in with fanfare. It came quietly, like breath returning. Behind me, the door clicked shut. I didn't look back. I forgave her, but I would never forget. 6 months later, my name was on every bestseller list in the country. The Quiet Knife, part memoir, part psychological dissection, hit something raw in people. I hadn't planned to write it. In fact, for weeks after the courtroom dust settled, I couldn't even open my laptop. My hands would freeze over the keys, unsure where to begin, but the words came anyway, like water through a crack in stone. I wrote in bursts in the dead hours of the night, between therapy sessions and long walks alone through the city park. I wrote with anger, with guilt, with unbearable clarity. And when I submitted the final manuscript, I thought maybe a few readers would relate. Maybe some therapist out there would hand it to a client and say, "Read this, you're not crazy." I wasn't prepared for the flood. Thousands of emails, letters, voice messages, women, men, children who were now grown. They wrote to tell me they knew the feeling of being gaslit by someone they loved, of being made to question their sanity, of watching a sibling they trusted turn into something unrecognizable. Some told me the Quiet Knife helped them see what they had endured for the first time. Others said they finally left the house they were too scared to walk away from. One woman mailed me a photo of the empty room she'd just moved into. "My freedom," she'd scribbled on the back. I cried more reading those stories than I had the entire year before. It didn't heal everything, but it made the pain useful. Vivian's arrest hadn't been the end for her. It had been the start. The case cracked open old files, unsurfaced lawsuits, a list of victims stretching back decades, financial manipulation, stolen inheritances, false power of attorney filings. Her entire empire, built on charm and control, began to collapse in on itself. Sierra stayed silent. She was never charged, but she moved away, far from the town, the house, the headlines. The last I heard, she'd changed her name and was working part-time at a floral shop in New Mexico. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I didn't hate her anymore either. Hate had no place in the life I was building now. I used part of my advance from the book to open a foundation. It was called Echoes Unbroken, a sanctuary for survivors of psychological abuse within families, especially those with stories like mine, who never saw fists, only silence, guilt, and erosion. We hosted our first group therapy session in a modest building on the edge of town. No press, no publicity. Just a circle of folding chairs, a kettle of tea, and a room full of people who had never spoken their truths aloud. The first meeting was quiet. Then one woman spoke. She talked about how her father would move her keys, her shoes, hide her homework, and then tell her she was scattered, forgetful, unstable. She didn't cry when she said it. Her voice barely trembled. But her hands shook like leaves. I remembered what that felt like. Another man talked about a sister who convinced their parents he was dangerous, unstable. He hadn't seen his family in 10 years. Each story peeled another layer from the shared wound we all carried. And slowly, week by week, session by session, something remarkable happened. We started laughing, not because it was funny, but because survival has its own kind of humour, bitter, ironic, strange. We'd made it through the fire. And now we were naming the smoke. The sessions grew. We added art therapy, somatic healing workshops, trauma-informed yoga. People came from out of state just to sit in that room, just to be heard. I wasn't the expert in those rooms. I was a participant, a witness, a student. Sometimes I spoke, sometimes I didn't, but I was there, fully there. The house, after months of deliberation, was turned into a retreat centre. It was ironic, in a way. What had once been a battleground of secrets now became a place where people came to find clarity. We left the kitchen untouched. The breakfast nook where Sierra once poured orange juice was now filled with books. The upstairs bedroom became a meditation space. But I kept one thing the same, the mirror in the hallway. Every week I passed it. Every week I paused. For years I'd looked into that mirror and seen someone unsure, hollowed out by doubt, shaped by the expectations of others. A puppet of other people's definitions. But now, when I looked into it, I saw someone else entirely, stronger, sharper, still flawed, but finally unmistakably whole. That afternoon I stood there a little longer than usual. The sunlight caught the edge of the glass, and for a second I saw not just my reflection, but the life behind me. The pain, the war, the survival. And then I saw the woman I had become. I smiled, not because it was over, but because I had survived it all and finally I was mine.